Hello, everyone. Eric Cox here with Netcapital. I'm excited to be joined with the team at PetroFunders, including Maurice and Ryan. Go ahead and say hello, guys.
How's it going, guys?
Hey, everybody.
Awesome. Let's allow a moment or two for people to settle in, and then we will dive right in. Thanks.
Great.
Okie dokie. Let's go ahead and get started. So thank you again for everybody for joining us and the attendees. Special thank you, obviously, to our panelists as well, the team at PetroFunders. I'll begin with a little bit of housekeeping before we start the webinar. So as always, this is a Netcapital company that is currently raising capital on the platform. You can either click the link in chat or visit netcapital.com and search PetroFunders, or you can go directly to netcapital.com/companies/PetroFunders. We want to keep this conversation as engaging and interactive as possible. Please do use the Q&A functionality in Zoom. I know there is also a chat function, but please do use Q&A. It makes it a little bit easier for us to track the questions and make sure that we can get to as many of them as possible. So please do not hesitate to ask the questions. We're really here to get you the information you need to know before you invest. So those are the basic housekeeping items. Let's go ahead and circle over to PetroFunders. So Maurice or Ryan, why don't you begin by just telling us what is PetroFunders?
Hey, great to have you. Great to have us on Netcapital. We're really excited to be here. Thanks for hosting this webinar. PetroFunders is going to be a equity crowdfunding platform that's specifically targeting the oil and gas market. We're looking to be a premier platform that democratizes access. A lot of people know about oil and gas, but not many people are able to actually invest in the sector without the knowledge base they need. So we're looking to bring forth that access to the market.
Fantastic. So thanks for that bit of background. And Maurice, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved, and then Ryan, if you could follow that with yourself and the rest of the team as well.
Yeah, so myself, I've been working in oil and gas as an engineer for a number of different years. I've worked in the public sector and the private equity-backed sector from fields all over the U.S. I've worked in North Dakota, Louisiana, California, Texas, pretty much any major basin you can think of, Colorado, Utah. And I've been involved with all aspects of the oil and gas market from the standpoint of corporate governance as well as acquisition, divestments, anything in the oil and gas industry from an upstream standpoint. I've been very, very involved from both the private equity backed side and the public sector side. Me and Ryan met years back, and he'll be able to give a story of how we met, but we've been planning this for a while, and I'm really excited to bring it to the marketplace. So Ryan, you can kind of give a background, and then we can talk about the rest of the team.
Yep. So thanks, Maurice. Well, yeah, I went to Colorado School of Mines, got my degree in petroleum engineering, and I met Maurice our senior year. He was going to school in Oklahoma, and he needed one class to graduate, and they weren't going to allow him at Oklahoma to graduate on time. So he had to take one class. So he applied everywhere around the country, and he got into, accepted at Colorado School of Mines. And so we met at a class called Oil and Gas Property Valuations, where my man Maurice flew out twice a week from Oklahoma to School of Mines to take one class for an entire semester. So that's how we met back in 2014. And we kind of went our separate ways, but similar paths. I started my first company my senior year in school. My first big project was in South Africa. I've had a lot of international experience, Timor-Leste, Australia, Papua New Guinea, Mexico, a couple others, and working with larger oil companies and smaller independent companies. So It's been fun. We've been planning PetroFunders for probably, about 2 years now, and really excited to where we're at and the pace we're going, and excited for what's to come.
And,
yeah,
for the rest of the team, we've really crafted our team to be all inclusive when it comes to us being able to format this platform in the right way. We wanted to make sure we weren't taking any shortcuts, and we wanted to make sure that our team itself was filled out with a bunch of experience. So we've brought on quite the cast of characters when it comes to people who have expertise both in the oil and gas market and also on the side of SEC navigation and an overall advisory board that's going to help us power this thing and make sure we stay out of any bad situations as we form the company.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one of the great things to see is this early stage in the company, seeing senior legal counsel and a director of accounting are already on board, really making sure that we're checking the compliance and regulatory boxes. That's great to see. Would you like to share any more details about, I know that was the core team. How about the advisors and investors? Can you tell us a little bit about Gardy and Steve?
Yeah, so our advisory board is built with people who we have had a pretty long experience with when it comes to mentorship. Gordy Bannister, he's a titan in the industry when it comes to both oil and gas knowledge, but overall corporate governance. He sits on the board of directors for a number of public companies, and he brings forth a lot of value from that perspective, where he's able to check in and drop in at times and make sure that we're on the right track and we're able to bring forth ideas in front of him. He's also able to give us his mindset in terms of thoughts and expertise, not just from an industry perspective, but from being an investor as well. And then Ryan, you want to go through Steve and Dr. Wright?
Yep. So yeah, Steve Coombs, I've worked with him around the world. He's a technical expert as far as evaluating deals and projects, but also he has his own oil company in California. So he just brings a wealth of knowledge, 40 years experience, Colorado School of Mines alumni. He's great to have on board. And then Dr. Wright, Maurice and I consider him probably one of the godfather of oil and gas evaluations. I told you that Maurice and I met at a property and oil and gas evaluation course, and Dr. Wright is the author of the book that's used in that course, and also that same book is used around the country in all the petroleum engineering departments. So very excited to have our advisory board helping us navigate the way.
And absolutely, that's great. The team is so important. So thanks for expanding upon the advisor and investor group as well. Before we get to the Q&A, and I'm great to see the participation already from the audience here. Before we get there, can we cover it like kind of in broad strokes? What are the problems and solutions? Starting with the problem, what does access to oil and gas investments look like right now?
That's the key part we're trying to bring a solution to. When you start thinking about oil and gas investments or energy investments in general, typically you only have access to what's on the stock market. Even if you're a savvy investor, you may look at some different MLP products that also trade on the stock market, but you really don't have access to too many income producing vehicles from an investment standpoint to take advantage of. We want to change that. We want to bring forth these investment products that will make it both easy and accessible to all investors, both large and small. So that's mainly what we're going to be trying to bring forth as a solution. And this will exist exclusively through our PetroFunders platform.
Absolutely. And so from the solution side, what does PetroFunders provide? I know it's very similar to the Netcapital model in a specific space, but why don't you, for those who aren't familiar, what is the solution?
The solution is just going to be equity crowdfunding, right? We're taking a model that has been used in a number of different outfits, right? Netcapital uses it to allow access for investors to access startups the way we're raising money now. Different outfits use it in the real estate market. I would say commercial real estate platforms are the primary example of how crowdfunding is utilized to bring forth value for investors. We're simply taking that method that's been proven over the past 6 or 7 years and applying it to a new space where we have expertise in the oil and gas sector.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. And so let's go ahead and bring in this question from the audience. Do you envision the fund to be international in scope, given the anti-carbon attitude in the U.S. Congress?
So currently, we're focused in the U.S. We can't speak to what we will do in the future as we grow, right? But right now, we're focused on all domestic levels of access. Obviously, foreign investors will be able to access products as well, but we're focused on building out the U.S. first and primarily, and doing that well with competence. As it relates to the current administration, we navigate the space as well as possible. What's great about what we're doing is we are bringing forth products that will allow us to navigate that space and take advantage from an opportunistic standpoint when it comes to certain products, right? So as companies start to have issues in the marketplace when it comes to debt and different things of that nature as an oil and gas company, they will be looking to divest of certain assets and maybe have a liquidation event and get more access to capital. PetroFunders, as a buyer in the market, will benefit from this scenario, right? So it's a buyer's market currently, and we will be creating access for those people to buy. So the administrative part of the scenario, we're navigating in a great way, and we're taking advantage of it.
Yeah, and actually that kind of goes back to the solution a little bit more. So, there's the securitization of everything. I'm super excited about what's happening in the market. I mean, they're securitizing, modern art and race cars, and real estate, of course, is probably the first and most active space, and then startups. Can you talk a little bit about what is the actual asset class that these investors on your platform will be able to buy? I'll leave it there. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's going to be a number of different products. We will launch products over time, and different products will cater to different assets. Currently, we're going to be targeting, our bread and butter right now is going to be the royalty market, as well as some very bespoke and unique products that will target, separate classes of assets that are predefined right now. So, for starters, the royalty product will be our bread and butter. And then as the marketplace goes and grows, we'll bring forth other products that may have a bit more risk reward. But for now, we're starting with the lower risk, easier, relative risk, and easier to understand, right? We're trying to roll everybody into these products and have these turnkey investments where everyone can understand it, and it's easy to bring forth to the market and market to the masses.
Maurice, could you elaborate a little bit on the royalties in oil and gas?
Sure, yeah. So when it comes to royalties, royalties exist in a lot of different formats for oil and gas, and we will be looking to take advantage of that, where currently today, there are not a lot of investors, whether you're savvy or not, that can actually purchase royalties without being an accredited investor. An accredited investor is going to be investors who make a lot of money, millionaires, things of that nature. There's a specific definition that you can dig deeper into to find the exact definition for that. But when it comes to access, right now, people can't access these products, right? They aren't able to do that on their own. But that's the power of crowdfunding. And we have built a route for investors to take advantage of that and invest, a small of an amount that we'll allow, and go towards a fund that will ultimately be able to make these purchases on their behalf and funnel the income back to them in the form of returns.
Great, thanks for that. And just for a little bit more clarification, from the accredited investor standpoint, it is geared towards wealth. So, over $200,000 a year in annual income for the last 2 years, and the foreseeable this year, and then also, or $1 million in assets excluding your primary residence. So, higher net worth individuals for the accredited investor standard. So that was really great to better flesh out the revenue share, or the royalty model. Let's talk about, I think it's gonna be important to a lot of investors. What are the ESG standards that you've built in? That was one of the things that really excited me about your platform, is that, obviously we're talking about, in the current climate, we really want to make sure that we're thinking about lots of different variables, not just profit maximization. Can one of you dive into the ESG standards?
Yeah, I'm able to do that. Me and Ryan are both really excited about this part. When it comes to the ESG standards, me and Ryan being new to, younger in the oil and gas market, we've been able to see our generation really become vocal when it comes to environmental standards and things of that nature. The more we talk to financial advisors and wealth managers, more and more investors at a high level are looking to make sure that people aren't just making money by itself, but also having a stance when it comes to environmental, social, and governance standards. So as it's become a hot topic, we want to make sure we are including that in our business model when it comes to how we're developing our products and how we're moving as a business. So we are going to be looking to have some environmental standards and social standards where on the environmental side, it may look like us having a metric of gauging the performance of health and safety when it comes to the environmental side of oil and gas companies. We may say, hey, we may not want to approach or work with every single oil and gas company who has a really, really poor track record of health and safety within their own business, right? So we want to be able to set some standards so that we can somewhat separate ourselves from oil and gas companies, right? We're not an oil and gas company. We are a fintech powered platform that is creating access to investment products in oil and gas. So this is really a prime example and prime opportunity for us to take advantage of having a way to set our own tune when it comes to what position we will take and incorporate some of these ESG standards into our business model, both on the fund level, but also at a company level.
Perfect. No, thank you for that. That's critically important, and that's great to hear. You mentioned the revenue model. Can we take a deeper dive into how PetroFunders makes money?
Sure. Yeah. Ryan, you want to take that one?
Yep. So a lot of platforms they host the crowdfunding model typically is you can host different products or companies, and you get a upfront fee for that, maybe a portion of interest. We're taking it a little bit different approach. We will have let's say on the right side we'll have our investor community. In the middle we'll have PetroFunders and our management team. On the left side we'll have our investment products. On each of the investment products, the funds, PetroFunders will receive a annual management fee for each of the funds, and then we also will earn a carried interest or like a revenue share from each of the funds. So that's how we make money.
At the bare bones level, we take a small share while passing on the majority of or the lion's share back to the investors. So it's really built to scale where we're not being too burdensome upfront or throughout the term of what the investor will get back. But as we grow and scale, that becomes beneficial to us because our cost structure is very low.
Great. And then when it comes to the annual fee and the carried interest, is that dependent on the type of return profile or the royalty rate, or how does some of those metrics come into play?
It's more so dependent on the amount of energy it will take for us to manage those products. Some products will be less intensive on the placement of those and management of those. Others will be more so. So it'll be dependent on the product, but it'll be within the industry range of what you see on typical platforms, anywhere from 1.5% to 3% is kind of the range that you see. We'll be right within that threshold.
That sounds great. Friendly reminder to those joining, the new participants, we'll go ahead and use the Q&A functionality to engage. We're happy to answer the questions that you might have and keep this as interactive as possible. So I wanted to kind of make that reminder there. Let's transition now to talk a little bit about the market size of the industry. How big is this market?
It's a massive market, right? Oil and gas is a massive market all in all. When you start talking about equity crowdfunding, it's just, the sky is the limit in a large sense. What we have tried to do in terms of the market size that we feel is obtainable is kind of look at, a smaller subset of companies when you're talking about medium to smaller oil and gas companies that may be backed by private capital or don't have access to capital, and look at the capital commitment that they need over the next 5 years, right? So if we kind of start to boil down that in terms of what will be a need in the marketplace, it allows us to form $1 billion to $2 billion obtainable market that we feel pretty confident that we'll have access to. Now that market share doesn't necessarily mean we'll be worth that, but that is the share of the market that we are trying to cater to, and we think it's reasonable and obtainable.
Yeah, 1.5 SOM. What about the total addressable? I know that's obviously that includes so many different things in energy, but how big is the total addressable market?
So what we've provided in the slide deck that will be accessible on the offering page, I believe we have 75 billion is the number that we have there. And that's just a function of all the capital that will be needed over the next 7 years or 5 years. And that's going to be broken down to your smaller companies in terms of, your private equity backed companies all across the US. And we pretty much looked at a number of different things to come up with that value. One being some surveyed companies who have stated the type of capital that they'll need over this next year. And obviously, currently, there's not really access to capital. So we've been, I would say, conservative in nature and projecting what companies will need over the next 5 years, really baselining it on 2021, which was a really down year for oil and gas. So we think it's very much within the range of doing that.
Fantastic. And you're talking about 2021, and there are metrics that are coming from 2019. We probably should talk a little bit about what's going on in 2020. How are we seeing COVID-19 impact the market and the growth in the market?
Ryan, you want to take that one?
So I'll start on the crowdfunding side, and I'll let you get to the oil and gas side, Maurice. But on crowdfunding, we get that asked a lot. How is crowdfunding? First of all, a lot of our friends and family, what is crowdfunding? So we go through that, and they say, okay, well, how is crowdfunding be affected by COVID? And we, as you guys will know, you guys have had some pretty good raises as of late on Netcapital, and I think it's booming. In July of 2020, there was a record number of offerings, a record number of investors. As people can't get access to maybe a government assistance through the PPP loans or whatever, everything's moving online. People are moving to crowdfunding more and more. So we expect that trend to continue. And as far as oil and gas, I'll let Maurice speak to that one.
So COVID-19 has really, had a big impact on the demand side of energy, right? So from a large perspective or a macro perspective, global demand from energy is just suppressed right now, right? A lot of people aren't traveling as much. People aren't taking vacations as much. The jets aren't flying as much. Cruise lines aren't moving. Even when you think about the freight of companies, there's less being transported, less moving around. And it's not just a US thing, it's a global thing, right? So COVID-19 is definitely having an impact from that standpoint. But remember, we are not an oil and gas company. We are a crowdfunding platform. So for us, that creates a buyer's market. And the longer this persists, the longer it'll be a buyer's market, because the prices of oil and gas from a commodity standpoint, just based on supply and demand, are somewhat artificially being held down because we have that global demand that's pent up, right? So for us, it's perfect timing because we're able to now create a vehicle that creates access and gives access to the masses for people to buy at a low or at a perceived low in terms of the cycle that we're in. So COVID-19, although it's been, it's had a really large impact globally. For us, we've been able to take that and turn it into something that we can utilize for a growth model within our access, and our products speak to that and they're catered for that.
Yeah, no, it's an important reminder. This is, while the assets that are trading on your platform will be reflected based off of the energy market, you are at your core a technology company. And the technology space that you're in or entering into has seen, the silver lining to COVID-19 is that the industry has seen an overwhelming increase in demand. So
and just speaking on that point, really great point to kind of segue into crowdfunding as a whole, right? We're not bringing forth a different model into a different market. We are leveraging the progress that a lot of companies have made up until now, right? So the Jobs Act of 2013 brought forth quite a lot of new companies in this space, the real estate market has been able to capitalize off that and benefit off of that. But we will be able to take the momentum in terms of educating investors on how to go and see an offering online, right? From Realty Mogul to Yield Street to a bunch of different crowdfunding platforms, they've done a great job thus far at educating the investor, right? So we'll be able to leverage the overall marketplace, and the whole term of rising tides lift all ships. We're going to be able to benefit off that, to where people who are familiar with Netcapital will also be familiar with the generality of signing onto a platform, viewing offerings, selecting things that you like, receiving a check through that platform, right? That's we're launching into that industry. We're just doing it for oil and gas.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. The rising tide, the tide is certainly rising, and it's great to have as many ships in there as possible out there sharing the good word of equity crowdfunding. So we're getting some more participation. Thanks so much for the Q&A engagement here. Let's do the second one first. Who are your competitors, and what do you anticipate your market share of the current SLM will be?
So on the market share level, we just went through that one, right? That's going to be the $1.5 billion that we went through. I think Jim may have came late, but earlier just maybe 5 minutes ago, we went through that question in terms of our market share that we believe we will be able to obtain. When it comes to our competitors, there are a number of different people who we view as competitors. Other crowdfunding platforms that are in the commercial real estate market, who have been pretty massive from that standpoint, in terms of the assets under management that they've been able to curate, but also the overall sheer number of investors. We'll also have a competitor in the oil and gas space in Energy Funders, and they bring forth. They were first to market, so they've done some good things on their platform, but they have different types of opportunities that are different than ours, right? So we're bringing forth these investment products. They have their own business plan, which is separate than what we're doing. We think what we're doing is really going to be built to speak to a particular part of the market that's not just oil and gas, but inclusive of everyone. So that's the market we're targeting, not just oil and gas guys. You don't have to be overly knowledgeable to take advantage of our income products, and it'll be something that everyone can understand.
Great, and I do want to circle back just for a second for part of that. We do appreciate SLM. We projected that you project to be 1.5 billion. What of that 1.5 billion do you think would be your market share versus the competitors in that space, for Jim?
So in this particular category, great question, Jim, and great follow-up question from the moderator. In this particular category, the market share for us is really going to be what we're able to account for, right? So if we're able to bring forth investors into this market, and we're able to place over the next 5 years, $1 billion or $2 billion into the marketplace in terms of capital, whatever we're able to generate is what our obtainable market will be, right? So we're looking to do, the maximum, right? We're looking to do as much as possible. Obviously, when you start talking about the TAM and the SOM, the market that we will be able to gather will be a function of the market that we're able to curate on the investor side. When it comes to us placing capital, the market is vast in terms of the capital that will be needed from oil and gas, right? Oil and gas companies right now do not have access to capital, both private and public. There's just not a large appetite in the capital markets for oil and gas companies. So whatever capital we're able to provide will be gobbled up in quick fashion, is our mindset.
Maurice, give an example in Texas. How much is coming due in the next 2 years?
just on in Texas alone, there's over 200 billion that's coming due in debt maturities, right? So the market will be, that's Texas alone. When you start talking about the entire U.S., the market becomes massive in terms of people needing access to capital, and whatever we're able to raise, we think will be what's attainable for us.
No, definitely. Thanks for circling back to that component. Before I go into the other questions here, we're coming about halfway through the program here, so I do love to do a friendly reminder. As always, you can go directly to netcapital.com and invest into this company. You could search for PetroFunders, You will see a little bit more information about the company, learn more about the team, etc. There's also some question and answer functionality built into the platform. Of course, we'd love as much of that Q&A if you're on right now to go directly through the Zoom Q&A, but do not hesitate to visit netcapital.com, search PetroFunders, and own a piece of this company, even as we're speaking right now. So,
and Eric, can you share with them where we are today and the progress we've made just on the raise?
I certainly can. You have raised $305,551 through the Netcapital platform. So we're quite a bit of progress so far. Speaking of progress, I know I set myself up for segues. I'm pretty corny like that.
Doing great.
Speaking of progress, let's talk about the rest of the progress from the platform standpoint. So my understanding is, the crowdfunding platform is built, and you already had your first offering. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Ryan, you can go ahead and give a comprehensive.
So what's that?
I was saying you can go ahead. I think there was a lag on the Zoom call.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, like you said, we've got our platform built. We've got our corporate, structures designed and built out. We've worked very closely with our SEC attorney, Marty Tate, helping navigate these SEC waters, because what we're doing has not been done before with the SEC. And we've built out our team that we're very happy with. Lots of experience in a lot of different areas that we need to make this happen. And back in May, we raised $1.91 million for an acquisition in Pennsylvania from about 15 seasoned oil and gas investors. For those of you that are familiar with the regulations, that was a 506c offering, and which only allowed for accredited investors. We learned a lot from that first offering. After that, we went back to the drawing boards, because we wanted to provide access not just to your seasoned oil and gas accredited investors. We needed to simplify the deal terms. We needed to simplify the product, and also provide access to people, from our family and friends and family and engineers and students and everybody that wanted to participate in this stuff. Because so we're very happy with where we're at now. We've got the team, we've got the platform. We're in the middle of lining up some deals, and just ready to rock.
And in terms of that first offering, just speaking a bit more to the result of that, we raised $1.91 million from 15 investors. It was for an asset acquisition, a lot more complex in terms of investors being able to understand that. That's why we had seasoned oil and gas guys. And to Ryan's point, we want something scalable, right? So although we don't want to do one raise here, one raise there, we want something scalable that everyone can understand. And one part of the business model that Ryan didn't touch on when it came to our economic alignment, we are able to, we aim to invest alongside our investors. That's going to be something that's unique that you don't see on many platforms, where we are competent in our skill set and confident in our skill set when it comes to our ability to make good decisions. We're so confident that we feel comfortable investing our own money as a team, right? So we want to have that economic alignment. On that first deal, we had a few $100,000 that was in play as well. And on our last leg of due diligence, we looked through all of the corporate documents, both the legal and commercial documents. These are hundreds of pages of documents at a closing table. And we saw some terms in there that we weren't comfortable with our own money. So we pulled back that investment and refunded all of the funds to those 15 investors, right? So that's when we went back to the drawing board and said, hey, how do we do something that's more scalable and accounts for speaking to the masses and audience from all background. And we think we have an investment product and products that speak to that reality now.
I think you covered a really important piece of the puzzle there, was that, the Reg D, the accredited investor only offering that you raised, 15 investors, that's great. But you imagine there's probably engineering students that are just short of $200,000 a year, professionals or executives around the world that maybe no longer have that high of a net worth or never attained that level of net worth. So your idea is to really expand what you're able to do through the accredited investor network and open it up to what some metrics show is the other 97% of the United States, with only about 3% accounted for in the accredited definition. So that does seem like a pretty exciting opportunity for growth.
Even outside of that knowledge base, right? You have guys who are in real estate who love yield, right? They just want to get yield out of these, multifamily complexes that, are struggling right now just due to COVID from a return standpoint. We've talked to a lot of guys who are in real estate who would love to access something in the oil and gas market, but it's too complex for them, right? We solve that problem by bringing these tailored and crafted products for them to understand and transition into a new exposure from a portfolio standpoint. And that's what we're most excited about.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And these are high risk asset classes. People should diversify their portfolios so allowing people to have exposure to multiple different investment opportunities, and that could go a long way. Let's get back to some of these the questions asked by the attendees here. So do you have an exit strategy, and if so, what is the time frame? Great question.
Yeah, great question, Jim. When it comes to an exit strategy, we want to focus on the primary task at hand, which is just creating enterprise value, right? So currently we're in the startup phase. We've built out the team, we've built out the process, we've crafted the investment products. The investment that we're raising, or the capital that we're raising through this current round on Netcapital, we're going to put towards really, driving that out, getting those products into the market. And ultimately, after we built, quite a substantial range of investment products and investors on our platform, we'll have multiple ways to exit, right? We'll have multiple off-ramps. The great part about our business is we are going to have these products that pretty much stand alone against other products, right? So we will be able to exit certain ones opportunistically as oil and gas recovers from a commodity standpoint. We'll be able to set forth some risk management tools that will allow us to exit portions as we see fit. So we'll have separate exit strategies, but that's at, I would say, a fund level or investment product level. From a company level, we also will be very attractive to your larger private equity firms, your larger oil companies who may see value in both a platform like this, but also the curation of capital, right? Like, we're creating access for oil and gas companies to access capital that is largely cut off to them right now. So we haven't put necessarily a time frame on it yet, because we can't predict what the market will do from a commodity standpoint, right? So you want to buy low, sell high, right? That's Warren Buffett's philosophy. We want to be able to be opportunistic, and that will very much be dictated by the marketplace, not so much a set timeline as of right now in 2020.
I think that makes sense. And thanks for that question again, Jim. Exits are going to be interesting these days. We've seen some really exciting action in the public capital markets with some really kind of marquee IPOs this year. So really does seem there's a lot of opportunities, and of course you're in the private equity space, so any one of your investors through the platform could potentially be an exit opportunity as well. Please continue to use the Q&A function, team. Really appreciate those questions coming from the attendees as we're getting closer to the end of our programming here. One of the things that I always like to ask, we talked a little bit about the progress that you've had up to this point. We talked a little bit about kind of what you think you're going to do in the future, but let's dig a little bit deeper about what does your 3- and 5-year plan look like? Where do you see PetroFunders over the next half decade or so?
Yeah, great question. I think our laser focus is going to be on 2021 starting out. We're going to look to bring forth 2 investment products next year. Our first one will be our royalty fund product. Our second one will be a more bespoke, unique product that will service companies who don't have the capital to fix their wells. So it'll be more of a workover fund. And we plan to bring both of those to market. One will be later in the year, one will be right in the beginning of the year. And we're looking to, place tens of millions of dollars through these products and get them up and running and create that access to where they're well known within the marketplace and have some results in terms of existing cash flow that we've been able to return to investors, right? So that's the big purpose and big focus for 2021. Moving forward from 2021, from a 5-year standpoint, we're looking to just progress through those products, right? We want to get those products into the market. The SEC language and current legal side of everything will dictate the amount that we're able to put through those products. But ultimately, we'll be trying to push as much investors and as much capital through those products to get them into the market and ultimately return that back to investors.
And on the topic of returning funds to investors, when do you project generating revenue? We already have the platform up and ready, so relatively soon, I imagine.
Yeah, we'll be generating revenue with our first investment product. As soon as we're able to get that out, raised and placed into the market, we'll start generating revenue. And that particular product is intended to generate revenue quickly, right? So that's right in our laser focus in terms of our priority as a company.
Absolutely. And then I imagine some people are thinking, we talked a lot about oil and gas. There was some questions that come through the platform about renewable energy. I know that's not your immediate focus, but do you imagine eventually adding renewable energy investment options to your platform?
From a platform standpoint, we're solely focused on oil and gas right now. I think the key part to understand here is what we're building, right? We're building access. We're building a community of investors. So over time, over the next 5 to 10 years, however long it takes, we're going to be able to build a massive crowd of investors. That's the goal. And we have a goal of having a track record of delivering value and returns to our investors. With that crowd and with that track record, we will be able to pivot into whatever sector we will want in the event that alternatives become a very economic and very lucrative avenue for generating returns. Right now, our expertise is grounded in oil and gas, but we're not outside of the scope of being able to pivot if those things come up in the future to be inclusive of alternatives. But right now, we are focused, strictly on oil and gas, and that is where our expertise is at, and that's where we see the value at in the market, right? Returns are our business, and that's what we're happy about, the return side of what we feel we can create in a depressed market for oil and gas right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And then kind of more in tune with getting to revenue and the timeline for that, what does the general use of proceeds look like for this fundraise?
Yeah, Ryan, you want to take that one?
Yep. So what we're doing has not been done before with the SEC. And it hasn't really been done in oil and gas as well. So the bulk of the funds will be towards developing these turnkey contracts and also navigating the SEC waters and getting approved and qualified for our offering. That is the laser focus immediately. We also have, some marketing dollars set aside. We have some, software that we need to put money towards. Our platform is built, is fully functional. We want to add, we have some dollars allocated towards doing some upgrades and customization specific for oil and gas to make it a little more user friendly. That's where the bulk of the money will go is the contracts with the oil and gas companies, the turnkey contracts, and getting the first offering off the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Our good friends at FINRA and the SEC, you'll be readily acquainted. So that's important. I think that really covers the bulk of the things that people need to know. If there's any more Q&A that somebody wants to slip in before we start going into closing remarks, please feel free to do so. But while we're waiting for those last couple of questions to come in, I'm old school. I still love closing remarks. Maybe we'll start with Ryan and then end with you, Maurice. What is the most exciting part of PetroFunders to you? What gets you excited when you wake up in the morning, and why should investors invest right now?
Oh, that's a great question. It goes back to, full circle. We've put together this team that I'm so happy about. We brought on Dr. Wright as an advisor, and to where his book is used in our oil and gas property valuations class. That's where Maurice and I met. And our teachers were so, they were oil and gas professionals. They've been there and done that in this class. And I would have loved to put money as a student towards these, final projects where we're evaluating deals. I would have loved to put money into that. There was no way for me to do that. So I'm just providing access to everybody, including your petroleum engineering students specifically. I mean, that's what I'm about, because that's what I would have done. So that's probably what I'm most excited about, is creating the opportunity for everybody.
And, piggybacking on what Ryan's saying, just diving a bit deeper, within our class, we had some professionals who were more so on the industry side than the academic side. So we were able to see quite a bit of real-time examples of, them creating value within doing deals in oil and gas, right? So hearing the stories, whether it was in the class, whether it's when we're in the industry, I'm just working in oil and gas, I've seen massive value created from deals, and you're able to hear about these, situations where executive teams are clearing hundreds of millions of dollars in the form of value from, acquisition that they made and created valuable over the course of a few years, and then selling into an IPO market. We think everyone should have access to that wealth creation, right? So that's what really makes me and Ryan go, is the idea of making that accessible to the masses, right? Everyone knows about oil and gas in terms of it being, a lucrative industry, right? Everyone associates oil and gas with wealth, but nobody knows how to access it. We want to change that, and that's what makes us pretty proud and motivated to do that.
Oh, I think that's an incredibly motivating narrative. I think that's a very exciting way to get involved. I think your team's background really lends itself to be able to do something special in the space. And I think we're all swimming in the same direction. So might as well swim together. So thanks for being a part of allowing Netcapital to be a part of your fundraise. Excited to see all the things that you both do, and continue to keep up the good work at PetroFunders. I'd like to thank all of the participants who came in, especially those that engaged through Q&A. And of course, I'd like to thank our panelists here, Ryan and Maurice from PetroFunders. Do remember, you can go directly to netcapital.com and search PetroFunders, where you can invest into this platform. So thank you, team, for coming on, and everybody enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Eric, for having us.
Bye, everyone.